Hello, Elka units. My name is Rox Titan. Today I'm going to be going over a Week 9 match that happened between Guinness and Nova. So let's jump into the first clip. So here we see Guinness with the disc fresh off the joust, kind of moving up. So if you notice here, it looks like they're having a little bit of trouble moving the disc forward. Leo's kind of holding onto the disc. He's not able to get it passed back. They do eventually get it passed down to mid, which turns into the players moving up, and they can transition into the offensive zone. But the reason, unfortunately, the shot missed, but they were able to recover it. But the reason why this is, so pay attention to the minimap here more. And notice the offensive formation they're in. So they're in kind of like a weird, like, triangle formation here. And eventually, it kind of, once these players move up, you notice that these two players, the back two players, aren't quite like, they're even with each other, right? So a pass, there's no pass back because these players are parallel to each other. This player's stunned out in the middle, and then they have one player up here who also looks like he's covered. So there's not a pass back here. There's not a pass up here. And so what a lot of teams do is when they're trying to control the disc, they all go to the same plane. So either they'll all go to the floor like you see here, or they'll all go to the ceiling, same thing, or they're all in the middle, anywhere, same plane. And that makes it easier for teams to cut their passes. You can see here, Leo doesn't really have any other options because, again, this player's covered. He's getting pressured here on the floor. This player's, while open, this player can get on them really quickly. And then Leo is being smart in the fact that if he passes it to this player, he's being covered by this player here. So if this player gets the disc, he's immediately being covered by this player. This player's stunned, but will be unstunned pretty soon. But then this player and then number 13 down at the bottom are in the same lane. So this player only actually has two options, both of which will be covered if Leo gives the pass to this player. This is obviously different. If this player was like up here, for example, they'd still be in line on the map, but they wouldn't be in line in the arena. And so that would be a very bad pass for Leo to make, even though it is his only open pass. Then the other thing that's going wrong here is that they have two players playing kind of evenly back, but they're not really playing back. They're both pretty pushed up pretty far. They don't actually have a single person staying back either here, double diamonds, to try and get a back pass. So they don't actually have a reset pass open to make. And so that's why, I mean, they do eventually end up, Leo does eventually, he calls out this player bluffing when he pushes towards him. He's able to get to a block. They're able to kind of spread out the verticality a little bit more. He's able to make a pass up to this player in the middle, and they're able to get control. But yeah, being on the same plane and not having somebody, a single person, a little bit further back, definitely hurt them. You can see once they do finally make a push into the goal, they got one player now who's all of a sudden moving to the back. So this player is the definitive back pass player. They've got this diamond formation set up, which is a much stronger formation. They've got very verticality here, and that allows them to make more passes. They have more players open. They can make a pass there. Shot goes off. That shot could have been a pass to this player who's alone on the floor, and that player could have made a play. But again, they had a player back here. Again, the diamond formation. One player was here, one player was here, one player was here, and they had a player here who was able to pick up the disc here. And so you can see just the way that formation, how when they switched from this kind of like flat back, these two players flat back formation, to the more typical diamond formation, how quickly they went from kind of being stuck to being able to make a legitimate push towards the goal, and even if they missed, having somebody open to recover. So going to clip 2 here. We see Guinness with the disc. Makes a quick pass. Unfortunately, isn't caught. Bounces off the bottom. You can see Nova putting a lot of pressure here. They're covering these players. The shield pass is getting covered. This player's being covered. This pass is being covered. Pass goes there. This player gets a boost off immediately. He's able to put pressure on this player. The goalie's back here cutting off the long shot. Guinness feeling a lot of pressure here. They are slowly but surely moving the disc up. But Nova's really making them fight for every inch here. Constantly covering passes, covering the goal. Coming back for boost, pressuring it. They do eventually get a punch here, which gives them the disc, and they're able to get a clear out. So what I'm going to go over here is, how good Nova's pressure is. They notice as soon as this pass is missed, you see Nova's kind of playing back. They're playing like a standard kind of mid-line defense. Excuse me. And as soon as the mistake is made, they immediately all three push up. They have one player staying back who moves up towards the midfield a little bit more. And you can see they're putting pressure on. So this player down here, this pass was covered. This pass was covered. This player was pressuring them. This player could have been up a little bit more on this player, and that does end up being the open pass that the Guinness takes. But you can see Guinness gets a stack together really quickly. It does get partially leached, but this player still makes it through. This player who was playing back is now covering the long shot, so long shot's not open. This player who got the boost off is pressuring them. Guinness has to back pass. So Nova's just doing a really good job of applying constant pressure on defense and really making Guinness just fight to move forward. They do end up getting forward, but eventually the Nova just putting the pressure on them. They get a little bit anxious. Instead of making the pass back over to the side and getting control, they make a deep pass with a chain, and the chain ends up catching the disc and they end up getting it out. So really good play from Nova, putting a lot of pressure on. And props to Guinness as well for just holding onto the disc that long under such pressure. Let's go to the next clip. So you can see now Nova with the disc, moving the disc up. They're moving a really quick, looks like pretty set play, moving the disc up. They got the disc moving in. He's got a couple players open on the pass down here. Pass doesn't end up going down, and then Zesper's able to get it in. So this is really good play from Nova. One of their strengths as a team definitely is getting these, getting the transitioning from like a quarterback possession into an offense really quickly. You can see here they make a lot of tight passes, able to move it up in there. And this player, once he gets up here, a lot of problems with teams do is when they try and rush the disc to the other side with one deep pass like this, is that player will get stuck, because all of a sudden, if they had like skipped a couple steps, for example, if they'd had Dimwee like take the disc off of Nest, cut right a little bit instead of going directly over Bowtie and just clearing it along the top to this player, that player is in a lot worse of a position because his teammates are still all on his side of the arena. But because Zesper moves up, Zesper's already almost in line with him because he's moving faster because he doesn't have the disc. He is able to get in line, and so that player who was the deep pass isn't completely stranded with the disc. So it's really good on them for sort of like moving the disc up slowly, but like, or not slowly, but quickly, but very controlled, and so that they didn't have players stranded without any passes open. They also took advantage of something that Guinness did wrong here, is that as soon as this pass got made up here, Guinness really only has two players now. This player here who ends up moving up and pressuring the disc, and they got a player back here who got punched out, and they got this player here who's kind of floats after, grabs blocks, isn't really getting there. So this is basically a 2v2 here. Potentially 2v3 if they pass it back to this player, but they didn't. So the defender has to pressure the disc because that's a smart thing to do. That's what he has to do. The pass does get off, and then Zesper then has a 1v1 with the goalie. He's able to slot in the bottom pocket. So what Guinness could have done here is this player realizing that even though you move slower with the disc, you don't move that much slower. So this player is never going to catch. Even if he hadn't grabbed the block and pushed down towards Pac-Man here, he still would not have caught up to this player. And this player would have gotten it, because if he hadn't been pressured exactly here, he would have got another foot here. He would have just taken the shot himself. So this player wasn't really doing anything. This player, again, not doing anything. So as soon as, even though you can see here, this player does get punched out, as soon as this pass was made, this player should have realized that he was not going to catch him. And so he should have gone back for the boost. And he might have had to fight for it, but it would have been, and even if he had lost it, it wouldn't have been any worse than if he did what he did, because he's not doing anything for his team right now. And so even if he had gone back and got stunned and they had two players stuck back, stunned out, it would have still been better for the chance that they do get a chain together and move forward than what happened, because he's clearly not doing anything as far as defense right now. So go to the next clip here. Just a really quick clip. You can see a missed pass ends up bouncing to Will. He's able to juke down under the pillar, get a pass to his teammate and put it in. So this is something I just wanted to highlight real quickly in this clip specifically, is the strengths of the pillars and just the strength of being anchored versus unanchored players in general. You can see here Will gets the disc off a bad bounce, and then he has three players all moving towards him, trying to cut him. He jukes down, and is able to get himself just an extra half a second he needs to pass to either this player. This player was also potentially open, but not really because of the cover here. This player was obviously wide open. And even though he had two players directly on him and one player at the ready to jump, who did jump on him as soon as he made it through, he's able, because he's anchored and those players weren't, he's able to make the quick movement downwards and is able to give himself just enough time to get open and get a pass up to his teammate here. So what you can do, and you can see Nova or Guinness is taking full advantage of these pillars because they got a player again over here. This is a really strong offensive setup in general for Nova. And what Nova needs to do in this situation is they need to take a half a second, try and stall for just a second so that they can spread out and cover the things they need to cover. Obviously, because of the nature of 4v4, they have to have a goalie at this range. So they can only have 3 defenders so they can have cover people. But instead of pressuring this disc as fast as they did, they should have, you can't see him because of the spectator, but there's the goalie blocks here, and there's one that's pretty far out, not quite far enough out to the pillar to put major pressure on it, but far enough out that you can be there and he's not going to try and just jump out at you. It's right around here. And so they just needed one player to grab out and just kind of screen Will out of pushing in. So he couldn't just rush the bubble by himself. And they needed the other 2 players to probably, what Venom did here was pretty good. He stayed on this block here. You can see him holding onto a block here. He's covering the cross pass. And if the pass goes back to Leo, he is in a decent position where he can jump up at Leo. And Leo's not going to be able to get a huge advantage with the disc. He's not going to be able to come up and push in like this center lane. So he's doing a good position here. They needed and then they had a second or a third player up here that needed to be covered, and that's the pass that Will ended up going for. So, I mean, Novo's clearly rushed in the situation because you can see just before the play happened, Guinness was already applying a lot of pressure. But it's important to be able to slow down the play, realize where position you're in right now. Guinness is in an insanely strong position right now, but Nova is in a position where they're almost in a good spot to counter, where they have Venom pressuring this pass, so this pass could get picked. This pass is not a free lane into goal. If they just taken another half a second and had one of the 2 players who rush Will here stop on a block and have the other one go up and cover here, they've all of a sudden got themselves in a position where they're almost in a stalemate, which is obviously not a winning position. But if you're stalemating a team who's surrounding your bubble like this, that's about as good as you can ask for. So just being able to pressure such a strong position like this by putting a player here pressuring the pass, having a player here pressuring the disc holder on the pillar and not allowing him to just walk into the goal, and then pressuring the backboard pass, obviously. That play at that point, that play probably either boils down to one of these 2 players winning the brawl, and if it's the Guinness player, then Guinness wins the play, or Will passing back to Leo, and then Leo being forced to make a decision, probably to pass to this player. But at that point, the play has a lot of different options of what things can happen. Again, if this player wins the brawl after the pass goes to Leo, a lot of things can happen. But pressuring the disc holder once he's on geometry like that, as aggressively as Nova did with 2 players and then 3 afterwards, is definitely a little bit panicked on their part. But Nova did a really good job of setting up the position. And even though the pass had been made and Will had made his decision, you see these 2 players are still waiting. So if the save gets made, then this player's waiting. So if the clear goes that way, he's there. And if the clear goes up or down, Leo's there. So really good play from Guinness pressuring the bubble. And then, unfortunately, a little bit of a misplay by Nova, just being a little bit too impatient. And Nova's able to get the points. I'll go to clip 5. We've got Nova sort of holding the disc 2-2 right now in round 2. Pass down. Pass up to Isen, who moves into the goal and is able to get in the bottom pocket past the goalie. Nothing inherently wrong with that play on first glance, but something that I do want to take note of is this player in particular. After the pass gets made, he sort of moves up to here, where all of a sudden there's not really a back pass. So if they get into a panic position and need to pass it back to a bow tie, they can't do that anymore. And it does end up working out for them, but it mainly works out because of Guinness's poor defensive setup. You can see this player here is holding on to this block at the corner, not really doing anything. He's not covering any passes. This player's too far down here. This player's too far up here. This player kind of on the backboard covering this player, that's acceptable. This player in the bottom, you can see just before the pass is on the floor, pushes towards them, and then immediately cuts back towards this player. So obviously he could have just let this player cover the disc and then pressured this player at first, and that would have made Dimwee a decent option. But they obviously didn't go for that, and so Nova is able to take advantage of a slightly poor positioning. But even if they had properly covered this player to here and this player to here, you can see the goalie to get the block off. This player could have pressured Dimwee as well right off the rim, so Dimwee wouldn't have had a free walk into the zone. So there's not very many positions, unless they were planning on passing to Easend and immediately passing it straight up to Dimwee and having him cut in after he had drawn the attention of both of this defender and this defender. You can see both their attentions are focused on Easend. If they had immediately passed to here, passed straight up to Dimwee, let him cut in, this player jumped out. You can see that, yeah, that player did jump out. This player jumped out, this player jumped out, this player jumped out. If he had made the pass straight up to Dimwee here, he had 3 players on top of him, and it would have been a lot harder for them to react to Dimwee cutting in like this. So even though the play did work out, just a little bit of a risky play. And so if this position, if either the defense had played this a little bit better, then this might not have worked out for them. And you can tell that even though it could have worked out if they passed it Dimwee, you can tell based on the fact that Isan never really looks up, that this was never part of the plan. This pass was never going to happen, even if Guinness had played it properly. He likely would have just been stunned out here. But you can see the way he catches the disc and immediately winds up for the shot. Dimwee was never really an option that Easend is considered, either because of the lack of comms or just because of this was just like he was going to take the shot anyway. So this pass wasn't going to happen, and so this player should have probably stayed back. It does end up working out for them, so fair's fair, but something that I did want to bring attention to. All right, go to the last clip. So the most important thing for this clip, I think, is context. So you can see here we're in a position where it's 8-8, so it's tie game. Just a little over a minute left in round 2. So you can see how Nova plays the disc pretty slowly. They're passing it, moving it up slowly the way they do. They're passing it down, passes it back up. Fortunately bounces, but he's able to get control of it. So Nova just doing a good job keeping control of the disc, playing it slowly. And this playing it slowly is important because when you're in a position like this now that they're in, where it's less than a minute left, or about a minute left, even at the beginning of the clip, it was only a minute 20 left, and it's tie game. There's two ways that they can play this beginning part here. They can either play it fast and try and put a lot of pressure on Guinness, and if things go badly, and if Nova plays fast, Guinness ends up getting a turnaround. They end up getting an interception or something, and then Guinness scores. And let's say it takes 20 seconds for Guinness to score off this, maybe 25. Then Nova still has time to score another goal, and so the Nova can still make a comeback, even if they do lose the disc on their offense, and Guinness scores pretty quickly. Then Nova still has a chance to score. Or you can do what Nova does, and you can see they play it a lot slower. They're controlling the disc. They're playing better, and in my opinion, to be fair, this is the better thing that they should be doing. They're trying to play slow. They're trying to burn time. Because if they score this disc, any points, 2 or 3, with less than 30 seconds left, all of a sudden, Guinness is under immense pressure, and if they score the disc with 20 or less seconds, it's almost impossible for Guinness to score here. So playing the disc slowly, like they do, they can see the pass up to this player, who then passes it back. Unfortunately, the stun happens. Nova regains control. They're playing in the disc. They're still controlling it. That eventually, Guinness does end up getting the steal, the clear, and they boost down, and they do end up scoring a 3 here. And at this point, Nova basically loses. It's 30 seconds left. The timer's going to run down to 15 before the disc goes back up, and there's not much Nova can do in 30 seconds in order to score a 3-pointer to go to OT. And so Guinness does end up taking this one 11-8. So this was the right call by Nova. A little bit of mechanical misplay, but that's neither here nor there. But definitely something that I wanted to bring attention to, just because it's an interesting decision that teams have to make when they find themselves in a position where they're even points and not a lot of time left. Nova does end up making a little bit of a hasty decision here, trying to push in. And again, this pass to Zesper, he tries to jump in on 2 defenders. He could have passed it to a super quick pass to Shield there, would have been a little bit better. But again, pressure happens and things happen. But just something I wanted to bring attention to because it happens in a lot of games, and it's something that teams are not always aware of, and they don't always make what I think is the correct decision in playing it slow. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and have a nice day.